Hey everyone, welcome to today's Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. My name is Nate Carter, and we are in the prophetic book of Isaiah. I've been looking forward to getting into the prophets for about a year now, so I'm excited to dig in. Now, Isaiah has much to say that is full of hope, full of promise, but he also has much to say that's full of caution and warning and punishment that God is speaking to the people of Israel through his voice. So let's look here. We see a metaphor beginning at the beginning of Isaiah 5. It's the metaphor of a vineyard. Let me read several verses and we'll explain it. Now I will sing for the one I love a song about his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard on a rich and fertile hill. He plowed the land, cleared its stones, and planted it with the best vines. In the middle, he built a watchtower and carved a winepress in the nearby rocks. Then he waited for a harvest of sweet grapes. I can relate. Right now, I'm building a garden in my own backyard. I'm looking forward to harvesting it here in a couple of months. But what happens? The grapes that grew were bitter. So skip to for verse 5. Now let me tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will tear down its hedges and let it be destroyed. I will break down its walls and let the animals trample it. Verse 7 explains what we're talking about here. The nation of Israel is the vineyard of the Lord of heaven's armies. The people of Judah are his pleasant garden. He expected a crop of justice, but instead he found oppression. He expected to find righteousness, but instead he heard cries of violence. So what we see here is this metaphor of the vineyard. The vineyard is the nation of Israel, and the purpose of a vineyard, the purpose of a garden, is what? Well, it's to bear fruit, and specifically the fruit of carrying out the work of God and being a light to the nations. And specifically, Isaiah talks in chapters previous and even here about carrying out justice and caring for those less fortunate. But instead, he hears the cries of the violence. And so we see that Israel has failed to bear the fruit that God has called it to. It's failed to live up to the whole purpose of its intent. A garden or a vineyard is intended to bear fruit. And so we follow now with verse 8 are several woes, warnings to those who are part of this injustice, this violence. What sorrow for you who buy up house after house and field after field until everyone is evicted and you live alone in the land, this kind of tyrannical rule that people are exhibiting. Verse 11, what sorrow for those who get up early in the morning looking for a drink of alcohol and spend long evenings drinking wine to make themselves flaming drunk. You can see just people waking up with no purpose whatsoever in their lives other than to get inebriated, not living out the purpose that God has called them to. And then skipping ahead to verse 20, what sorrow for those who say that evil is good and good is evil, that dark is light and light is dark, that bitter is sweet and sweet is bitter. What sorrow for those who are wise in their own eyes and think themselves so clever. And just for those of us that study the Bible, as we all do, we're doing it together right now, it's so important to know what is right and what is true. But it's also important for us to know that we're not to be wise in our own eyes. And I want to be careful that as the more and more I grow older and study and study Scripture in particular, that I'm never growing wise in my own eyes, but I'm remaining humble enough with these words that are being spoken to me. Now, just skipping back here. So what's God going to do? Verse 13. So my people will go into exile far away because they do not know me. Those who are great and honored will starve, and the common people will die of thirst. I love this next phrase. The grave is licking its lips in anticipation, opening its mouth wide. Isn't that, it just kind of sticks with you, doesn't it? What a picture. Verse 26 says, he will send a signal to distant nations far away and whistle to those at the end of the earth. They will come racing toward Jerusalem. Isaiah is prophesying destruction for the people of Israel in exile. And it's hard, horrible news. Why is God doing this? Well, the answer is found in verse 16. But the Lord of heaven's armies will be exalted by his justice. The holiness of God will be displayed by his righteousness. God is defending his name and what it stands for. He stands for justice and righteousness and holiness. And when his people are not demonstrating that same fruit that he stands for, he's going to destroy them. Now, we live in a new covenant era. We live in the New Testament, which is covered by the grace of Jesus. But what doesn't change is the heart of God, that we still, as God's people, are to act in his righteousness and act in his justice. We're to bear fruit. We're still called to bear fruit according to what he's called us to. And so this is a warning to us that even though we're saved by grace, and there's grace that covers a multitude of sins, every sin imaginable, yet we're to live lives of righteousness and honor still. So I just see this as a good corrective for us, that even though it's a new covenant era, we can still look at the heart of God that has never changed and make sure that we, as his people, are bearing fruit in light of what he's called us to. Perhaps today is a day just to take a quiet moment to do a little bit of self-examination, self-reflection, not to beat yourself over the head for things, because again, we're covered by grace, but yet to see, is there a corrective here for us to be walking in line with what God's called us to and bearing the fruit that he's called us to as well. With that in mind, have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time in the next Cornerstone Connection.